Okay. So I'll tell you what we're gonna do is today I'm gonna start chapter 15, and on Wednesday I will complete chapter 15. So today we're gonna talk about just general things like money. What is money? What are some of the characteristics of money? What would happen if we didn't have money? Okay. And then just a little bit of how the Federal Reserve, which is our central bank, how the Federal Reserve defines money. You know, what is money to them? Because to money, what money is to us is very simple. What money is to them, it's a little bit more complicated. Okay. Then on Wednesday, I plan on talking about banking and the fractional banking system and what is the impact of the fractional banking system on our economy. You're going to see that, remember, when we talked about fiscal policy, there was something called spending multiplier, where an initial increase in government spending or an initial increase in investment translated into a bigger than that increase in the GDP. So that was the spending multiplier. Now we're going to have a money multiplier, where if an amount of money gets put into the banking system, the amount of money is going to get multiplied. It's going to be the final increase in the money supply in the economy is going to be greater than the initial increase in the money supply that was done by whoever. You know, it's going to be done by the Fed, but you know. So the Fed can put a little bit money into the economy, and the economy actually is going to grow by a lot more money than the initial increase. So that's going to be the money multiplier. So that's going to be on Wednesday. Then next week we have spring break. No, it's not spring break, Thanksgiving's break. Thanksgiving break. So we have the whole week off. So there are not going to be any meetings or anything. Anybody going any place? No. My wife is going to go visit her family, but I'm staying home. Woohoo! So so anyway, then when we come back the week after Thanksgiving, we're going to talk about monetary policy. So what does the Fed do to move the economy in the desired direction? Remember, we had fiscal policy, and that was what the government does, Congress and the White House. What does the government do? That's fiscal policy. Monetary policy is what does this central bank of the United States do to move the economy in the desired direction? And then the week after that, we're going to have international trade. And international trade is going to be chapter 33. That's the last chapter. And then all I'm going to do is the last week of classes, I'm going to post a review for the test on Monday. And then the final is going to be available Thursday and Friday, like always. So I try to keep everything consistent. So it's going to be on the 10th and 11th. Okay. I know that the last week of classes is the 14th, is a Monday. But since I wanted to keep everything consistent, I put the final on Thursday and Friday. You know, so it's going to be just like test one, makeup, test two, makeup, and now final. Okay. And then I can tell you that usually what they do is for the grades, they give us until the first day of January. So after we come back from vacation, that's when our deadline is to turn in the grades. I'm going to try to do it earlier than that by the 21st or so. So I want to do it before the holidays. Uh, so I can give you the bad news before the holidays, to put you in a good mood, You're gonna see it's gonna be good news. Anyway, any questions, comments, anything? Remember that the final is comprehensive. So it's going to cover everything. It's going to be approximately 1/3 what we did for test 1, 1/3 for test 2, and 1/3 after test 2. So that's that's that.
Professor,
Yes,
the test is going to be 25 questions or it's going to be more?
25 is worth more as a weight, but it's only 25.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Normally, if this was a on-campus class, the final would have been 40 multiple choice questions. Yeah. Anyway, so let's start with chapter 15. Today's lecture is not going to be very long. It's rather a short lecture. It's about, what's the definition of money? What makes money money? So let's talk about it. Chapter 15, money. And basically, I'm looking at characteristics of money. What makes money money? Before I start with that, can anybody tell me if we didn't have, is money a good thing or a bad? Just as an idea. If we didn't have money, would we be better off or worse off?
It's a lot easier than bargaining or bartering, I'm sorry.
Absolutely. Money is one of the best inventions ever, best thing that we came up with. Life would be unbearably hard if we didn't have money. We would be in the Stone Age without money. So money really allowed human society to advance. It's one of the best things. Fire and money. As far as I'm concerned. You're absolutely right, Kathy. If we didn't have money, we would have to resort to bartering. Which would make trade very, very difficult. And if we cannot trade, then we would have to be self-sufficient. In other words, I would have to hunt my own food. I would have to cook my own food. I would have to do my own clothes. I would have to build my own house. I would have to do everything myself. Well, I'm not going to be very efficient. If I specialize in something, I'm going to be much more efficient in the one thing, in the activity that I'm specializing in. And therefore, I'm going to be able to produce a lot more than I would produce otherwise. Okay. So what happens is trade. With trade, we are able to specialize. If we specialize, then we can trade however you want to look at it. And this allows us to produce a lot more, to be a lot more efficient, to produce a lot more. And if all of us are able to produce a lot more, then all of us as a group are able to consume a lot more. So because of this, we are able to live a lot better. Think the first problem that comes about with bartering. If we didn't have money and we had to barter, immediately you would run into a problem. If you have something that I would like to have, I would like to get it from you. With money, I can offer you money, and if I offer you enough money, you're gonna give it to me, and vice versa. But with bartering, it's not enough that you have something that I like, but I gotta have something that you like. And if I don't have something that you like, there's not gonna be a trade. So trade is going to be a lot harder to take place with bartering than with money. You need, with bartering, you need this double coincidence of wants. not only you have what I want, but I have what you want, which is not an easy situation to happen. With money, everybody is looking for money, so it's much easier to trade, very easy to trade. All we have to do is agree to a price of trade, and once we agree to a price of trade, we're going to have trade. Another problem with bartering is if we had to have bartering, the amount of prices in the economy would be staggering. Imagine that you go to the market, to the farmer's market today, and there are 5 fruits available. You have apples, bananas, cherries, dates, and elderberries. Well, if we have money, how many prices would we have for those 5 goods? And the answer is obviously we're going to have 5 prices. The price of this, the price of that, and so on. But if you don't have money, then the prices are going to have to be in terms of each other. How much are apples in terms of bananas? Apples in terms of cherries. So you'd have apples and bananas, apples and cherries, apple and dates, apple and elderberries. And then you're going to have bananas. You already have apples and bananas, so you don't need bananas and apples. You already know the price. But you need bananas and cherries, bananas and dates, and then cherries and a lot more prices. See? The price would actually be the formula, if you're interested, but probably you're not. The formula would be n times n minus 1 divided by 2. Okay. Because you multiply each one by the number of the others, goods, and since you only take it in one direction, you don't need apples to bananas and bananas to apples. You divide it by 2. So think in a supermarket where you have 30,000 goods, what the number of prices would be n 30,000 times 30,000 minus 1 divided by 2. It would be staggering. So makes our life a lot easier. So definitely one of the best things that we have in society is money. It makes our life a lot easier. Okay, now, what makes money money? So what are some of the characteristics of money? Let me ask you this. Let's suppose that I go to the supermarket and I get a cart full of groceries. So it's chock full of groceries. And then I go to the checkout counter and the person at the checkout counter tells me, well, it's going to be $500. Okay. And I say, well, let me see. I don't have $500, but guess what? I got this pen. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to let you have this pen if you let me pass with a cart full of groceries. And the person says, cool, no problem. So I pass. Okay, now the person at the checkout counter goes to a Porsche dealership and test drive 956 or whatever, and they like the car, and how much is it? 150,000. I don't have 150, but I'll tell you what, I got this pen. I'll let you have this pen if you let me drive off with a Porsche. The dealer said, no problem. And you can use this pen to buy anything. Is this pen money?
No, it's not money, but it does things.
It does things. But if everybody accepts those pens as medium of exchange, guess what? If everybody accepts this pen as medium of exchange, this pen is money. As long as everybody accepts it as a medium of exchange. So the number one characteristic of money is that it has to be accepted as a medium of exchange. I know, Kathy, that it doesn't look like money. It doesn't have any dead presidents or anything like that, you know. But
I went in the wrong direction. I thought you were going to use that pen to sign a piece of paper.
oh no. So can anybody tell me? I mean, I know that money is usually paper and coins, right? Metals and paper. But money in itself doesn't have any value, right? If I don't have, I have warm-up suit. Sweatsuits over here. I don't even have any pants, so I don't have any. Well, I have pants, so sweatsuits. But I don't have a wallet. I don't have a wallet on me, so I can take out a piece of paper. But we all know what the dollar looks like, or $100. You know, it's just a piece of paper. Does it have any value in itself? No, it's just a piece of paper. You know, I mean, heck, if this piece of paper should be even more valuable. How come? It's bigger. It's more paper. So the money itself doesn't have to have intrinsic value, you know, but we assign it value. We give it value. Okay? And as long as we all accept that value, as long as we all accept it, then it's a valid medium of exchange. Many things have been used as money, right? Tobacco has been used as money. Red woodpecker scalps has been used as money. A long time ago, I brought to class an actual Mesopotamian seashell that had been used as money many thousands of years ago. And somehow, by the time that the class was over and I was supposed to get that seashell back, it never made its way back to me. But you know, lucky for me, it wasn't that valuable, you know, but I'm never going to show anything again. No more show and tell in class. Maybe only in Zoom, but even then I don't trust you guys. So anyway, so anything can be used as money as long as we all accept it as a medium of exchange. That's by far the number one characteristic of money. But just by the by, have any of you heard of the stone money?
No.
No. The stone money, it's called money called rye, and it was used in Micronesia on the island, mainly on the islands of Yap, and that stone money. And do a Wikipedia, and actually not only do a Wikipedia search on this, but do a little bit of YouTube search on rye money. And this rye money looked like this, like donuts. And they vary in sizes, but a lot of them are very large in sizes, like
oh wow.
Yeah, 12, 14 in diameter, 14 feet in diameter. Many thousands of pounds. Incredible. The story is really fascinating. And this money was not really used as currency because it was so valuable. So this money was more used like in dowries or political deals, or purchases of large purchases, maybe bunch of animals or stuff like that, or a house, or you know, very large purchases. You wouldn't buy a chicken with this type of money. But here's the deal. The guys on the island of Yap, they would not even get this money from their own island. They would have to go by canoe and little boats to another island where they had the stone, because on that island they didn't have the stone, the limestone that they needed for those money. And it was a treacherous journey to go from this island to another island to carve in the mountain those huge rocks and then transport them back. Okay. And the value of the rock was not only determined by the size of the rock, but by how much was sacrificed into getting that rock. So if a whole bunch of people died, man, that rock was very valuable. Nobody died, who cares? You know, interesting way of doing it. And here's the neat thing about it, because I want to make a point here. Those rocks were so big that obviously you couldn't use them in everyday transactions, okay? Because you couldn't take them out of your pocket, okay? It's 15 feet wide, and give it to somebody else. So they were lined up along a road. And guess what? Everybody on that island knew who owned what rock. So transactions were very easy without having to exchange hands. Because if I bought something from you, a whole bunch of cows or whatever, the ownership would transfer of the ownership of the rock would transfer from me to you. And everybody on the island knew that now is no longer Otto's rock, but is Kathy's rock.
Oh, great.
So now everybody knows it's your rock. Now you can do whatever you want to do with that rock. So as long as everybody knows who owns what rock, it's perfectly fine. You can use it as a medium of exchange.
Well, it's very low maintenance and not likely to be stolen.
And it lasts forever. You know, you don't have to like paper money. You got to print it every few years. But here's an interesting thing. At one time, they wanted, for whatever reason, they wanted to put some of those rocks, some of this money from one end of the island to another end of the island. I don't know why.
Good idea.
So the problem was, it was very, very difficult to transport those rocks throughout the island on land. So what they did is they loaded them up on the canoes and they started sailing around the island to go to the other side. Unfortunately for them, there was a big storm and a whole bunch of canoes sank and the money went down to the bottom of the ocean with that. You would think, whoa, a whole bunch of people have been made poorer because their money is at the bottom of the sea, of the, actually, I don't know, ocean. Well, guess what? They figured out that that's not the case. The money is still at the bottom of the ocean. And we know who owns those rocks at the bottom of the ocean. So the money's not lost, it's over there. So if I had a rock at the bottom of the ocean and I wanted to buy your house, I would announce that that rock at the bottom of the ocean is now yours and the house is mine. And now you own the rock at the bottom of the ocean and you can buy whatever you want with that rock. So you didn't have to have a physical presence of the rock, of that money, to actually exist, as long as everybody knows who owns what rock. Folks, can you give me an example of the type of money where you don't have to have it in your hand? You can never have it in your hand. But that
Credit card?
money,
Credit card?
no, not
No,
credit.
okay.
Think of something very modern.
Bitcoin.
You will never.
Like water.
There you
Bitcoin.
go.
Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin. And what is a necessary characteristic of Bitcoins that everybody, it's known who owns it, right? Is that chain management, right? The blockchain management, that there's an openness about who owns it. Okay. So basically it cannot be stolen because, well, if that Bitcoin is owned, you know, this whatever serial number, however they are, you know, so and you cannot put it in your hand because it's electronic money, right? So it's interesting about money because you actually don't have to have the physical presence of money for money to exist. It can exist as long as everybody knows who's got what. And as long as, and how come Bitcoin is not our money? Because it's not universally accepted as
an exchange, a medium of exchange.
It's not a medium of exchange. You may be able to buy certain things, but not everything. With a dollar, you can buy everything. So that's why the dollar is still our money. Okay, now, another characteristic of money is it's got to be a unit of accounting. What does it mean to be a unit of accounting? It's very simple. Folks, for our dollar to be our money, that means that all the prices, all the wages, everything has to be measured in dollars. We cannot have the dollar as our unit of, as our money if we use the prices in euros and the wages in pounds. You cannot have that. So everything has to be measured in that. So we can compare apples to apples. Unit of accounting. Another characteristic of money is got to be a store of value. In other words, you can use this money today, but you can use it tomorrow. You can use it a year from tomorrow. Okay. The stones worked. Ice cream may not work. You have it this morning and you're not going to have it tonight. So it's probably not going to be. Could ice cream be used as money? Of course it could be used as money. You know, someplace, you know, on a ship, somebody's willing to do whatever for a pint of ice cream. I don't know, the Cane Mutiny. Remember the book, The Cane Mutiny, where the ice cream disappeared? Well, ice cream could be used as money because the sailors were willing to sacrifice to do something for a pint of ice cream. Okay, so basically those are the three characteristics that we need in money. But by far the most important one is we all accept it. We all accept it. And remember when I told you that money doesn't have to have any intrinsic value. In other words, in itself, it doesn't have to be valuable. It's just a piece of paper with some ink on it, or it's a piece of metal with something stamped on it. Okay, no intrinsic value. Okay, I mean, what would be something that would be intrinsically valuable to me would be something that you can use at other things. You can use to actually live off of. Water would be an asset that has intrinsic value. Okay, because without water, I'm going to die. Or food would also be something, but food, the problem with food is, it goes bad. But those would be something. Or lumber. I can build a house with lumber. Okay. What can I do with money? Nothing. Let me ask you, what about gold? Is gold something that has intrinsic value?
No.
No, very good. No. Gold is not something that has intrinsic value. It doesn't have the value in itself. It has the value that we assign to it. Gold only sells for how much it sells because we gave it that value. But in itself, not that much. What do you make with it? Mostly jewelry. Yeah, I know that it's used in electronics and stuff like that, but most of it is jewelry. Big deal. Think about it. If push comes to shove and the world becomes a zombie world and stuff like that, is one of those apocalyptic times. What are people gonna say? Oh, I need gold. I need gold because I need jewelry. Come on. There are a lot of other things that I can think of that would be a lot more value, that have intrinsic value. That's why I like on my homepage, on my internet homepage provided, when I go to the homepage, there's always some advertising that if you click on it and you stay for the presentation, and usually they have like a 15-minute presentation, they tell you how the dollar is gonna go down in value, how the dollar is gonna erode in value and is gonna disappear, and blah 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 and blah blah blah. And at the end, they're gonna tell you that what has value, what you should do is you should buy. Any ideas?
It was tell you to buy gold.
Dollars, because the dollar is gonna go down in value. You should buy
Gold.
Gold, right? And they're telling you that the government is printing money, and as the government is printing money, the value of the dollar is going to go down and down and down, and you got to save your family, and the only way to save your family is investing in gold. But then you got to think about it a little bit. Who's selling this gold? They are selling your gold. So they are, and what are they taking in exchange for that gold? Those dollars. So the one thing that they're putting down, and they're saying that this is going to be valueless, it's going to be worthless. They're saying, give me those worthless notes to me, and I'm going to give you this thing that's going to save your family. I'm going to sacrifice my family in order to save your family. Yeah. Seriously? Okay, folks, so let's talk a little bit about how the Fed measures money. Okay, so we're going to take a look at how Fed looks at money from a liquidity point of view. Liquidity means that it's easily transferable into money at its face value, if you will. So let me ask you this. What do you think is more liquid? A painting that has been appraised at $100,000 or some stock that is worth $100,000?
The stock.
Stock, right. The stock, you want to sell it immediately, you may have to give a little bit of a discount, but not much, and you're going to get very close to face value. With the painting, if you want to sell immediately, you're going to have to probably discount the painting quite a bit. Or if you want to get the full face value, you're going to have to wait a long time before you can sell it at full face value. So liquidity means a combination of selling it fast and at face value. the narrowest definition of money, the most liquid form of money, and you probably should, I know that it's a little bit kind of, it's tricky when I ask, well, what is the most liquid form of money? What is the narrowest definition, the most liquid? And you would say, it sounds tricky, but it actually, it's so straightforward that's why it sounds tricky. What is the most liquid form of money?
Currency.
Physical money, currency.
Exactly. What we consider as money. Currency is already, it's, $5 is $5. You don't have to discount the $5 to get $5, right? So the most liquid form of money is called M1, and M1 from the Fed's perspective includes currency plus checks. Checks is also included in M1. So currency and checks. Currency includes paper currency and coin currency. But let me ask you something about checks. Let's suppose that I open up my wallet, I take out a blank check, and you know that I'm a very generous person, and I write the whole class a check for $5 million. And I give it to you. I wrote a $5 million check, I signed it, and I give it to you. Is that check money?
Not yet.
It has a low probability.
Okay, good. Well, I take offense at that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How do you know my financial situation?
Well, if you had written a check before then, it wouldn't be good.
Well, let's put it this way. If that check was money, I would not be here, okay?
Right, yes, exactly. Okay. Within context, okay.
So what my check is gonna do, you're gonna drop it and it's gonna bounce to the ceiling and back. So my check would not be money. But let's say that instead of writing you a $5 million check, let's suppose that I write you a $50 check and I give it to you. Is that check money?
Yes.
Well, let's put it this way. On a good day, it's going to be. On a bad day, it's not going to be. So it's still, it depends. From day to day, we decide. Most circumstances, yes, it would be money. So for a check to be money, that check has to be able to clear. So once the check cleared, that check is money. If the check doesn't clear and it bounces, obviously it's not going to be money. I can write a check for $10 billion and obviously that's not going to be money. But if the check clears, it is money. Folks, I want you to remember this for the Wednesday lecture, because what we're saying here is that checks that clear are money. They're buying just as much and just as good as currency, paper currency. Okay, so they're money. Checks are money. As long as they're clear, they're money. Okay, that's important. Okay, now I can tell you that as far as the Fed is concerned, there are other types of money that are not quite as liquid. So there's something called M2. I don't want you to know what's included in M2, other than M2 includes M1, plus a whole bunch of other forms of money that is not quite as liquid, such as money market accounts, such as saving accounts, such as certificates of deposit, CDs. So there are other types of financial instruments that are not quite as liquid as checks and currency, and they're not going to be included in M1, but they're going to be included in M2. And one conclusion that we have is that obviously M2 is greater than M1 because M2 includes M1, right? And there are other types of measurements of money that you have M3, which is equal to M2 plus a whole bunch of less liquid forms of money, and L, which is equal to M3 plus other types of less liquid forms of money. So there are many ways of looking at money. For the purposes of this class, and for the purposes of in general, currency, checks, that's what we care about.
Can you repeat that, Professor? You froze for a few seconds.
Yeah, so for the purposes of this class, we are only interested in the narrowest definition of money in M1, which is currency and checks. Okay, now, who controls M1? And well, actually, who controls it? All the M's, all the money. Well, is the Federal Reserve. Okay, and we're gonna get into the Federal Reserve next class. Federal Reserve is a central bank of a country. Well, no, in the United States, Federal Reserve is the central bank of the United States, but all countries have a central bank. Most countries, not all of them. There are some that operate, and a country can certainly operate without a central bank. But a central bank in general, it has certain duties, certain abilities. And the number one is to control the money supply, to control the amount of money in an economy. When the economy needs more money, they will pump more money into the economy. And we're going to take a look at how they're able to pump this money into the economy, because they're not going to drop sacks of money out of airplanes. Okay? When the economy, sometimes there's too much money in the economy, they're able to suck that money out of the economy. Okay, so because if there's too much money in the economy, that could lead to inflation. If there's not enough money into the economy, that could lead to a recession, to a slowdown in the economy. So this central bank has to regulate the money supply to make sure that there's always enough money to ensure that the economy can grow at a steady rate. The central bank also operates as a supervisor for the banking system. So central bank supervises the banking system, makes sure that the banking system is a healthy one. Okay, that banks do not go out of business, they don't go bankrupt. Okay, they also act as bankers to the bank. And we all know what a bank does. A bank takes in money, in other words, takes in deposits, and then what do they do with those deposits?
They
You
lend
tell
them
me,
out.
if you were a bank and people deposit that money with you, what do you do then?
They use
You
as
lend it?
leverage. Yeah.
You use it.
Yeah, you
will.
lend it because what do you want to do? You want to make
Interest.
interest. You want to make money on that. So this is what banks do. They take money in and then they loan money out. Well, you can deposit money with Bank of America, with Chase, with Wells Fargo, but you cannot deposit money with the Federal Reserve Bank, with the Federal Reserve, even though it has 12 regional banks, 12, well, actually, there are 25 altogether, but 12, now the word escapes me, but you can read all this in chapter 15. I don't really care about how the central bank is organized and stuff like that. The central bank is run by something called the Board of Governors, 7 people who are appointed by the president. But then once they are appointed by the president and approved by the Senate, they are independent of the government. So that's why a lot of times you're going to hear that central bank, the Federal Reserve, is a quasi-private public institution. In other words, they may be appointed and voted in by the Senate. But once that happens, they operate separately from the government. So they have that independence. So from that perspective, they're private. Okay. Anyway, so we're gonna get into not next class. Next class we're gonna get into the banking system. What happens when money gets deposited into the banking system? And then in 2 weeks we're gonna get into, well, what can the Federal Reserve do to change the money supply, to change the impact of money into the economy, and what are the tools that they have available? Okay. But for now, the only thing that we talked today is just what makes money money. And the one thing that I want you to remember, characters.
We had another freeze for about 5 seconds of
Yeah,
transmission.
You froze. Can you repeat the one thing you want us to know?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It sounded important.
Yeah.
No. Oh, today, I think I said that today the only thing that we did is just kind of like what are the characteristics of money? And by far the number one characteristic of money is it has to be accepted as a medium of exchange. So as long as we all accept it as a medium of exchange, then it should serve very well as money.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So right now we're focusing on chapter 15, money banking, central banking. Are we going to be covering deficit spending and public debt, or
No,
should I skip that?
we're skipping that. So
Okay.
chapter 14 is going to be skipped altogether.
Okay.
So we go chapters 10, 11, 12, 13. That was last test. And we're skipping to chapter 15, X and 16, and then chapter 32.
Okay.
So Wednesday, we have a new lecture on Wednesday, and that's when I go into banking. And we're gonna get into that money multiplier, how if money gets into the banking system, the money is gonna get multiplied.
Will chapter 33 be covered?
No,
Okay.
I may talk about it, but it's not gonna be covered on the test. So I'm gonna talk a little bit just for fun about the exchange rates, but we're not gonna cover it on the test. So the last chapter should have the name Comparative Advantage and the Open Economy. And that's international trade.
Yeah,
And it should be chapter 32.
it is. Yeah. We don't have the Miller PowerPoint on chapter 15. We do have the text. That'll be